Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to PDA Day. Oops, okay, I'm gonna talk really loud so Dreamer can hear me. So welcome to everyone who has joined us here this morning in Burbank. It's so wonderful to see you. We've got a full crowd here. And I wanna say welcome to our overflow room in Doyle. I'm hearing that that's a full room as well. So it's a great turnout this morning. It's exciting to see everyone here. I want to first acknowledge our board members who made it here this morning to join us. If you would please stand when I call your name. Board President Maggie Fishman. Welcome, Maggie. Trustee Dorothy Battenfeld. Where's Dorothy? There she is. And we also have our student president, Jordan Carbajal. There's Jordan. Wonderful, welcome. So after today, we say goodbye to this space as it goes in for a much needed rejuvenation. So take a look around. And we will be holding our next PDA days down in Petaluma. And for those of you that were there that last spring, you know what great hosts they were, what a fantastic venue it is. So we're very excited to continue this tradition down there for the next year at least, 17, 18, possibly, we'll see how long it all takes. When you go in for a spa treatment, sometimes you never know how long it's going to take. So no matter where we hold PDA Day, though, it takes a huge village to put this day on, and you're going to find out how many people are involved in presenting workshops today, how many people behind the scenes do so much work. I have so many people to thank, but I'm not going to do it here today. But I do want to highlight a couple of heroes that I don't think often get any attention for the work that they do for this day, and that's our sustainability heroes. And Carla Grady, our faculty member specifically, gets all of these reusable coffee cups that you see out here. She schleps them over here. She gets them all set out. She hunts for them in secondhand stores all year long. She calls them back and washes them after each day. She brings all the silverware that we're going to have at the lunch. And I think that's a phenomenal commitment. She works with a very dedicated crew committee that is also very concerned about sustainability. But if you have read Guy Tillotson's notes about one-use coffee cups, you know that they are a huge impact in our landfill. And so this effort is one step that we can take as a staff event to address that and do our part. And so I really thank Carla. I think also Katie Gerber has helped out with this amazing, very much, and as I said, there's a whole committee. I don't even know who all of the individuals are, but they're very passionate about this, and they help us out with this on PDA Day. So this PDA Day, we are also beginning a little composting pilot project here. So look for the bins in the lunchroom. We also have one here for your stir sticks and sugar packets. Guy Tillotson, I want to thank him for jumping on that and taking advantage of the opportunity for us to start trying to see how we can maybe expand a composting project as well. So, with that said, I now want to turn it over and welcome Dr. Chong, our president and superintendent, to the stage to tell you some other very exciting things that we have going on here at SRJC. Dr. Chong.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Great, huh? I can't see all of you, but with all the stressful stuff that's going on nationally, I really needed some relief. So I got a call yesterday saying that if I would be at 6 o'clock at the back door of Russian River Brewery, I can get in to try Pliny the Younger. And I called my wife, said I'm going to be home late tonight. I have to work. And I'll give you a little backstory about how that happened. 4 years ago, when Ricardo Navarrete and I went down with a bunch of faculty to Los Angeles for the faculty outreach to recruit faculty, people said, well, the president never goes, And I said, well, I'm going to go. I want to really see how this works. And we talked to hundreds of prospective faculty members, And one of them was from now our counseling department, Barbara Bahakis. And Barbara's boyfriend, Rick, we talked to him and said, you know, we would love for you to come up and look at Santa Rosa. They were from Southern California. And when I talked to him yesterday, he said, you know, Dr. Chong, when I knew Barbara might get a job up there, I ran up there and we ate at the Russian River Brewery. And I said, I need to get a job. So I talked to the manager, and sure enough, they hired him because he had experience. He went on to study at the JC, transferred to Sonoma State, where he's majoring in economics. So these fairs work, you know. And the ultimate is I get the hookup, and then I find out Mike Starkey's in there, and then Dan Munson's in there, and Dan shared with me, he didn't mention this in the Tauzer lecture, but that's where you get your brain power from and intellect. So I'm really indebted to our faculty and our staff for hooking me up. A lot of great things going on at the college campus. At this week's February board meeting, our board unanimously voted to reaffirm our support for all students and open access to Santa Rosa Junior College. So. And this was really a joint effort by classified staff, faculty leaders, student leaders like Jordan, board members like Dorothy Battenfeld, our new board member Marianne Martinez, and of course our president Maggie Fishman. We all worked together to craft a resolution which shows that we are unified. And I'm proud to say we're now amongst one of over 30 community colleges across the state that have passed similar resolutions. And I just want to assure you that we're not alone. You know, we're part of a system, we're part of a state, we're part of a region that really wants to celebrate diversity and inclusion. And since it's President's Day, I thought I'd share a quote from George Washington, which says, "Government is not reason, it is not eloquence, it's force, like fire, a troublesome servant and a fearful master. Never for a moment should it be left to irresponsible action." So think about that, and I think it really speaks to our ability to have a voice when we see things we disagree with. And the other president, I don't want to leave Abraham out, he says, "I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live by the light that I have. I must stand with anybody that's right, and stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong." Okay? So think about those two quotes from two of our greatest presidents. And from the standpoint of the JC, we're going to continue to fight vigorously to maintain open access for all of our students and all of our residents, because I think that's the value of this country, this state, and of course this community. From the standpoint of enrollment, I want to give a report a little bit. We're like 4% below where we were last year, and I'm asking all the faculty to help us out. I also want to take this opportunity to introduce an extraordinary professional who's privileged to join us, and that is Pedro Avila, our new Vice President of Student Services. Pedro. Please get to know him. I've tasked him with the task of looking at our enrollment management, everything from marketing to outreach, and he's working together with Mary Kay, our illustrious Vice President of Instruction, and all of us as a team to see what we can do to attract greater enrollment. We're also, as you know, moving forward with Measure H. Our 2030 plan has been completed. Have you seen some of the renditions out in the lobby? I particularly want to thank the leadership of Lee Sada and Jane Saldana Talley and the theater arts folks for really visioning what a theater should look like in 15 to 30 years. And I promise you it'll be incredible when it's finished. We're also putting in a lot of new technology in classrooms. We're testing out furniture. We're going to be modernizing a lot of classrooms. So during modernizations and during rehabs, just please bear with us and communicate with us when we're not giving you the right information about closures of parking lots and facilities. It's going to be inconvenient, but our job is to make it as seamless as possible. We also received over $1 million from the state for our CTE programs through the Strong Workforce, and many of you have received that kind of funding, so I really want to thank the leadership of Jerry Miller for putting that together. Jerry, thank you very much. And we also are going to be starting with a new bookstore manager starting on March 17th, St. Patty's Day. It's going to be hopefully a better situation for our faculty and for our students. I really want to thank the faculty committee and students and classified who participated in the RFP process. Follett has been selected, and they made a commitment to really be service-oriented toward faculty and to students. So please hold them accountable, and if they're not, I need to know about that. Okay. We're also moving forward with our different workshops today. There's going to be workshops on how to increase retention. There's workshops on the resolution that we passed. So look through your program, and I think you'll find a rich smattering of different types of workshops. And I really want to thank Mary Sandberg and all the HR staff and the committee for putting it together. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about 100th anniversary. We're 99 years old now, and who would have thought, you know, this place would turn 100? As somebody says, you only turn 100 once, unless you're Al Magini. So we have formed, we have a web page now, and I want to thank Ellen Marimon Silver and Jane Saldonatelli and Amy for helping us with this. We've been storming the last 6 months, but now we're going to be norming and start developing and getting people involved. The whole idea of the celebration is really to try to look back, reflect on how great Santa Rosa Junior College has been and how impactful it's been on our community. And so we're trying to bring back a lot of alumni, a lot of retired faculty, administrators, and classified staff members who made this college great. So there'll be a whole calendar of events that go on. Please sign up. There's also a staff development workshop that's going to be held today. So I encourage you all to get involved in whatever way you feel comfortable. And finally, I will end with showing the video that we produced. We're trying to raise $15 million for the 100th anniversary. I'm happy to say that we are at close to the $5 million threshold already. And I really want to thank Kate McClintock and Sarah and Brianne from the foundation for leading that effort. Let's give them a big round of applause. So I'll leave you with this video, and I think it'll give you a sense of the history of Santa Rosa Junior College, and I think we have a great future. And thank you for all of your support of me personally through this very difficult time. But again, I believe we are stronger together. Thank you.
It has been over 100 years since it all began. An idea brought to life by a group of determined women. With the support of a strong community, Santa Rosa Junior College was formed in 1918. It began without a permanent location and with only 19 students, but the founders must have known that they were creating something much bigger. Santa Rosa Junior College has since been home to more than 1 million students, and I am proud to be part of this remarkable story. As a long-standing member of the Board of Trustees and as an instructor, I've had the great privilege of working to serve the very best of our region. I have lived for more than 100 years. I have seen the world around me change in ways I never thought possible. Yet in my 100 years, I have seen one thing remain constant: SRJC and the power of education. There is something special about the JC graduation. Watching these students with their families and friends is inspiring. I don't know their names or stories, but they are full of hope and purpose. They are the single parent and the future nurse who will care for our families like her own. They are the first-generation college student and future botanist who will develop sustainable ways for us to feed the world. They are the foster youth and future lawyer who will serve as an advocate for others. They are the military veteran and future business leader who will introduce the world to new technology. They are future journalists who will touch hearts and future teachers who will change minds. They are the future first responders who will save lives. Graduation is a celebration of great accomplishments, but it's only the beginning. These graduates will take what they have learned at SRJC out into our community and the world around us to change it and to make it better. Graduation is a constant reminder that Santa Rosa Junior College impacts the lives of many, and that education is where it all begins. I can only imagine the possibilities and the progress that will be made as SRJC moves through its next century. From one centenarian to another, I offer my appreciation and congratulations. Here's to the next 100 years.
Hello, and welcome to Professional Development Day and the Tauzer Lecture. I look at a film like that and I realize how many people's lives have been impacted by this college and what a privilege it is to be here. And Professional Development Day is one of those opportunities for us to continue to grow and learn. I'm Laura Lynn Larson, and this is Tara Jacobson, and we're the current faculty coordinators for the Professional Development Committee. I'd like to thank the Professional Development Committee members, and I'm going to ask that you stand as I call your names. Please hold your applause till the end. Mary Sandberg, of course, Pauline Bell, Sean Brumbaugh, Sarah Hopkins, Tracy Ruel, Laura Cervez, Laura Sparks, Debbie Weatherly, and Alicia Virtue. Thank you, committee. Professional development creates a thriving teaching and learning environment at Santa Rosa JC, and it's the responsibility of each one of us to offer dynamic workshops and bring outside speakers who can introduce us to their expertise. At this time, I'd like the 130 presenters and from the 60 different workshops that are being offered today to please stand. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to talk a little bit about the Brook Tauzer history. The Brook Tauzer Faculty Lecture is the highlight of PDA Day each spring and an honor for the faculty member selected to give it. The Tauzer Lecture is a long-standing SR tradition since 1987, and it was named after Brook Tauzer, who is an emeritus professor of history and former vice president of academic affairs at SRJC. Brook was the first VP of instruction, and in fact, he was the first VP of anything at SRJC. He worked at the college from 1955 through 1986 and frequently taught classes throughout his career. While working in the Office of Instruction, Brook collaborated with a small group of originators who were responsible for the beginning and establishment of both the Petaluma Center and Schoen Farm. Even after retiring, he authored a 2-volume set of SRJC history covering the period from 1957 to 2000. Brook is cherished for his warmth, integrity, dedication to academic excellence. The Tauzer Lecture is an SRJC faculty member who has been selected for teaching excellence by the committee by a committee consisting of the former Tauzer lecturers. And here's the picture of all the former Tauzer lecturers, excluding the 2 that you're actually going to see live today on stage. And that brings me to my next step, which is my pleasure to introduce Dan Mutton from mathematics. He was last year's Tauzer lecturer, and he will be introducing this year's Tauzer lecture. Welcome, Dan.
Welcome to my STNC classified faculty, administration, and board colleagues. This is my 28th Tauzer lecture, and with the possible exception of last year's presentation, I have looked forward to all of them. Because this is a celebration of great teaching. It's what we do, and it's why we're here, and all other purposes are secondary. And today it is my pleasure to tell you a little bit about this year's lecturer, Tammy Sakanashi. There we go. Born on 10 Kaban of the Maya calendar, Tammy's horoscope predicts that she is blessed, or should I say that we are blessed to experience her intelligence and creativity. She is innovative, community service oriented, and a positive influence on others. She's a Bay Area native growing up in the East Bay, and anyone living in the East Bay in the 70s had to be an A's fan. And Tammy is. The only thing I can say about 3 consecutive championships in 1972, 73, and 74 is 2010, 2012, and 2014. Takes the sting out of 1989. But Tammy is ambidextrous, and she roots for both teams. She attended the University of California at Berkeley, starting as a math engineering major, but later changed to nutrition. She earned her BS in clinical nutrition in 1983, the same year that I earned my degree from Cal in mathematics, and the same year that Cal beat Stanford in the last moments of the big game by running through the Stanford band. And Tammy was there, cheering on the winning team from the student section. Did I mention her sister went to Stanford? After Cal, Tammy went to Cornell, where she earned an MS in human nutrition in 1987. But Tammy is a lifelong learner. On her sabbatical, she entered culinary school at Napa Valley Community College. This is a 9-month, 8-to-5 program where she earned a certificate in culinary arts. After college, she became a research scientist at UC Davis from 1990 to 1997. Where she worked on projects including the effects of folic acid supplementation during pregnancy to decrease susceptibility to environmental toxins. Not the title of today's lecture. It was at this time that she had her first teaching experience, when she was drafted to teach a dietetic nutrition therapy class at Woodland Community College, and it was love at first class. She had discovered her passion for teaching. Well, perhaps rediscovered. Her sister Karen shares a story. Whoops. There we go. Her sister Karen shares a story. When they were children, Tammy's favorite game was to play school, or perhaps more accurately, to play teacher. It was Karen's role to be the student, and Tammy would give her worksheets that she could then correct. But one student wasn't enough, so she filled out the class with a large stuffed bear and Raggedy Ann doll. But Karen had to complete worksheets for all 3 so Tammy could have enough papers to grade. After UC Davis, Tammy came to SRJC in 1997 and has been here ever since, serving on the Academic Senate, the Accreditation Committee, the Equivalency Committee, the Sabbatical Leave Committee, and serving as department chair for 7 years. She was honored by the Academic Senate for outstanding contribution to SRJC for her efforts as coordinator of the new faculty development program. She's a member of the California Dietetics Association. But teaching here at SRJC is not just about professional activities. I asked her colleagues to tell me a little bit about Tammy, and while I could have read any of the letters or emails they sent me as an introduction, I'll summarize the common themes. The first things her colleagues mention is her kindness, her caring, her compassion and positive attitude. They say her passion for teaching serves as an inspiration to both students and faculty, that when assigned multiple tasks, she is brilliant and focused, that she possesses a no-nonsense attitude about nutrition and is a maverick nutritionist, regularly connecting the pleasure of cooking with healthful eating. As we know, the most important part of maintaining good nutrition is balance. It's not all broccoli and quinoa, and Tammy takes the same approach to life. One of the things her colleagues mention is that she always has fun. Well, what does she do for fun besides enjoying enormous sundaes? She loves reading. And she loves walking with her dogs, Oliver, and, well, what do you name a dog when you already have an Oliver? What goes with Oliver better than martini? So there's Oliver and martini. And of course she loves cooking. When I asked her what kind of food she enjoys preparing, she said Indian, Chinese, Cuban, Japanese, and the list went on. She is a culinary world traveler. She also treasures spending time with her amazing family. On the left, you see her husband, Carl, with her. In the center, her husband, Carl, and daughter, Akimi. On the right, a family photo with her sisters, Karen and Robin, and their husbands, Jonathan and Sean, and nieces and nephews. And some of them are here today. In conclusion, Tammy is a born teacher with a passion about her subject and the craft of teaching. She provides us with a full recommended daily allowance of knowledge, professionalism, teaching ability, attention to craft and balance, and an extra strong dose of fun. And that, my friends, is a recipe for success. Please welcome to the stage our 2017 Tauzer lecturer, Tammy Sakanashi.
Oh, my goodness. That was wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, wonderful people. How are you? It's great to be here. I tell my students that I think nutrition is the perfect science. Now, I know the chemists out there are going to start screaming at me, but the main reason is it encompasses all the different sciences. It has chemistry, it has physics, biology, physiology, anatomy, you name it, it's in nutrition. And on top of that, it's all about our body. So it really is a valuable science to learn, and most importantly, and what makes it dear to my heart, is it's about food, right? So let's talk about food. This is a photograph. Many of you may have seen it. It's from Peter Menzel's book, What the World Eats. And this is a photograph of what a family of 4 in the United States is thought to eat in a week. Okay? So now, thinking about that, I want you to think about how much food you eat. So in your lifetime, which I'm hoping will be hopefully 100 years, but the CDC says 78.8, I'd like you to think about how many pounds of food do you think you're going to eat? Okay, Mary Kay says 1,000, a little low. Marty says 1,000,000, no, a little high. My husband says 70 tons because he's listened to this lecture a number of times. Let's get this going. Oops, sorry. Oh, I blew it. Okay. This is a picture of a 70-ton dinosaur. So this is how many pounds you're going to eat during your lifetime. I couldn't find a photo of 140,000 pounds of food, so instead I found this dinosaur. But it really is hard to put into perspective in terms of the amount of food you're going to eat. So I have here someone to put it into perspective, and this little dot, and I hope you can see this in the overflow picture, that this little person is a human, and this human is our favorite Dr. Chong. So put it in perspective. Next time you're talking to Dr. Chong, think 70 tons of food, okay? Going into your body over the next, hopefully, 50, 60, 70 years. Another important fact, every single molecule in your body came from something that you ate, possibly drank, possibly breathed in. But when they say you are what you eat, I want you to take that seriously, because think about it. Your entire body, whether we're talking your hair, which lots of people think about when they're eating, but more importantly, your heart, your liver, etc., are all made up of molecules that you ate. Now, there's a smidgen that came from something that your mom ate. But other than that, it's all you. So let's think about that. If you are what you eat, what are you, Santa Rosa Junior College? I want to thank those of you who filled out my dietary survey that I sent out last fall. Almost 700 of you replied, and it really gave us a really good picture of what you're all eating. And so throughout the lecture today, I'm going to be bringing up some of the results of what you ate and what you answered. I'd like to thank Casey Greeny and Laura Abel from the Office of Institutional Research who helped me create it and then also tallied up the results. Okay? So let's think. What are we? One of the questions I asked was, how often do you eat fast food? Okay? We went from never to twice a day. You can see we at the junior college are actually doing really well. Almost 82% of us don't eat fast food, or at least we eat less than once a week. There are a few of you who could probably eat a little less. Now, I have to say that this survey was voluntary, and there are 3,000 of you, so the chances are we did hit those healthy people. But as you look at these numbers, I want you to think about, where would I stand in that whole picture, okay? To put it into perspective, I wanted to see what the world, well, not the world, what the US would look like. So I found a Gallup poll that actually asked the same types of questions that I did about fast food intake, and so we can compare the numbers from Santa Rosa Junior College to the US. And what do we see? We're doing much better. 38% never eat fast food, whereas in the United States, only 4%. Okay? So, fortunately, we aren't this man. We're not built to fast food. So let's talk about what we are. Let's talk about our diet. Now, these are the top 10 leading causes of death. And the ones in yellow and italics are the ones that have some connection to what you eat during your lifetime. So here I'm going to ask for a little audience participation. I'd like those of you to think about people that you're blood related to. Now, you can think of yourself as well, but you don't have to reveal anything if you don't want to. Of the people that you're blood related to, how many of you have somebody that has high cholesterol, hypertension, or has some problem with heart disease? Raise your hand. Okay. Now leave it up. This is a little bit of physical activity. You're just sitting there, right? Okay. Now, how many of you have somebody that you're blood related to that has had some form of cancer? Now, if you already have a hand raised, raise the other one. All right. Now, how many of you, I'm going to skip down to number 7, have somebody you're blood related to that has had some problems with high blood glucose or diabetes? If you've already got both hands up, I want you to stand up. Isn't that amazing? I have my students do this every semester, and it's amazing to look at. Thank you very much. Now, those of you who raised your hand for type 2 diabetes, one of the things that is becoming critical in the United States is the fact that diabetes increases your risk for the development of heart disease 2 to 4 times over the average American. So we'll look at the consequences of that in a minute. But what I wanted to show you next was actually some data from the Centers for Disease Control over the last 20 years, looking at the prevalence of obesity here on the left and the incidence or prevalence of diabetes on the right. Now, the color coding goes such that the light yellow color is a low incidence, and it starts getting more orange, and then it goes to darker red as you get to the higher prevalence of the problem. Now, I'll go through the exact numbers at the end, but I just wanted you to feel and experience the changes that have happened in the United States over the last 20 years. There we get our first red states and not in voting. Well, maybe. 2014 is last year we have the cumulative data. So you can see here for obesity, we go from 1994, California was at less than 14%, and then you go up to 2014, we have over between 22 and 25% of our adult population that is obese. In terms of diabetes, in 1994, we had less than 4.5% of our adult population had diabetes, and now you see in 2014, we actually had the highest in the United States with some other states in terms of greater than 9% of the adult population with diabetes. That's over a 20-year period. It's why all the time I've been here at the JC, which hasn't really been that long, right? So here again are the leading causes of death, but as recently as January 2017, a group from University of Boston and University of Pennsylvania looked at the numbers of deaths and causes of death, and they feel that we are actually really underestimating diabetes as the leading cause, among the leading causes of death, and that it really does run as number 3 in the United States. So keeping that in mind, let's look at some of the risk factors for type 2 diabetes. Genetics is one of them, and those of you who raised your hand or stood up have that tendency towards it. It's a risk factor. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. It's just a risk factor, as I tell my students. The other one is ethnicity. There is a big ethnic difference in terms of who develops type 2 diabetes. We see that American Indians and Alaskan Natives have the highest incidence of diabetes, followed by non-Hispanic Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians being the 4 ethnic groups with a much higher incidence of type 2 diabetes. Getting older. This is something we all want to do, so I won't cover that one. The other risk factor is hypertension or high blood pressure. And this is the fastest growing chronic disease in the United States, according to public health data. So we'll look at some of the issues with that. And then being physically inactive. But I know those of you who were here 2 years ago for Karen Stanley's Tauzer lecture, none of you are physically inactive. You're all in there, and we're going to look at that. But then the other risk factor is being overweight. Not necessarily obese, but overweight. And particularly accumulating fat in what we call the apple-shaped body fat distribution. It's a nice way to put the fact that you're gaining fat in between your organs. Now, we gain fat underneath the surface of our skin, but what's been found is that the fat that we gain in between our organs, which we call visceral fat, is actually a different type of fat cell. And that type of fat cell is much more likely to develop problems that can lead to chronic disease like type 2 diabetes. So here is a photo of the apple-shaped body fat distribution. This is Drew Carey in 2010 when he found out that he had type 2 diabetes. He also had a new child, and so he decided that instead of dealing with it with medication, he would deal with it with diet. This is Drew Carey in 2016. He's lost 100 pounds, and he's controlled his blood glucose levels. You never get rid of type 2 diabetes. You're never cured. But he has stopped the problem and limited the damage that's going on in his body. So how do we achieve a healthy body weight or maintain a healthy body weight? One of the things that is very popular in the United States, in fact, it's a $2 billion industry, is weight loss books, weight loss plans, etc. One of the things I really want to stress here is that all of these diets work. When somebody comes into the office and says, oh, I just lost 20 pounds on the, what's the new one? Full 30 or some, Whole 30 diet. I just lost 20 pounds on the Whole 30 diet. Say, yeah, you can follow directions. Okay? Any of these diets work. They do. If you follow the directions, that's the way that they're designed. Okay? Now, you know I love ice cream. I didn't know that they were going to put that picture up there, but it's a bit I want to give you the basic idea of a fad diet. They all break food down into good food and bad food. You can only eat the good food for whatever reason they give you. Okay? But you're limited that for that period of time that you can eat it. So you say, 6 weeks, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. You get this limited number of foods, or maybe it's larger. That's all you can eat. By about week 2, you're tired of eating those foods. When you get tired of eating those foods, you eat less. And so by the end of 6 weeks, you're so sick of those foods, you're barely eating them. And so, of course, you're losing weight because you've cut down your calories. You get down to your 20, you lose your 20 pounds. Now you're into your bikini and your Speedo and you're happy. You go to Aruba, you come back, and you start eating everything in sight, right? So, let me just explain that a little more clearly, in case you didn't understand it, with my retirement plan. I'm going to publish a book called The Tammy Sakanashi Coffee Haagen-Dazs Ice Cream Diet. $24.95 if you buy it hardcover, $9.95 if you buy it for Kindle, okay? But we're gonna make thousands, Carl, aren't we? The idea is you can only eat coffee Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Day 1, you might be ecstatic. I promise you that in 6 weeks, you will lose 20 pounds. By day 2, you're thinking, coffee Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Day 3, not so. Day 4, the smart ones of you will quit. But those with willpower will stick to it. I'm going to lose that 20 pounds. And you stick to it, and you stick to it, and you lose that 20 pounds, and then immediately go out to dinner and have steak and chicken and baked potato, everything you didn't eat. Because as we learned in the book Scarcity, in the fall PDA day, if you limit what people have, they can't concentrate, they only want what they couldn't have, okay? So then what happens is people gain that weight back. And what we see is what's shown here on the purple line is that here's the coffee Haagen-Dazs ice cream diet. You lose that weight, then you're done, you go off of it, and you gain that weight back. In most cases, we see that people gain more weight than they actually lost. Okay? But you see, in terms of the industry, this is exactly what they want. Because if you lost the weight permanently, who's going to be able to sell you the next book, right? So, to fund my retirement, just think fad diets. But what I want you to think is they don't work. Okay? I hope the one thing that everybody takes away from here is never to think about diet in that sense again. We need to rethink what we think about eating and getting to a healthy body weight. So here we have Dan Mutton contemplating the wilds of Alaska. But what he's really thinking is, what does diet really mean? And here, I'm going to channel Eric Thompson, because we know that he loves the etymology of words. Now, the etymology of diet comes from the Greek word dieta. Dieta means manner of living, not chunky monkey diet. Dieta mashte is also a derivation of where diet came from, and it means the manner of living and how we're living our life. Okay? So diet never came from something that was temporary, that was going to be something that was, we're going to persevere for just 2 weeks. It means your lifetime. And actually, that's exactly what Drew Carey realized and how he lost his 100 pounds. So let's think about that a little bit more. Diet can mean a lot of different things to people all around the world. And this is again from Peter Menzel with his 80 Diets Around the World book. And so this is a refugee in a camp in Sudan, on the border of Sudan and Chad. Here we have a lifeguard in Australia. And what you're seeing with them, and let me go back to that last slide, what you're seeing is what they eat in one day. So here's the lifeguard again. This is a farmer in Ecuador. She has a family, but this is what she eats in one day. And then finally, a woman in Bangladesh who has a microloan to be able to run a farm that she's able to sell milk with. And this is what she eats in one day. So we see people around the world have all these different diets. Somebody must be getting it right. Somebody must have the way of eating that decreases or doesn't contribute to chronic disease and potentially leads to a long and healthy life. And indeed, they do exist. These areas of the world where we have people that live long, healthy, non-diabetic, non-heart disease, low cancer rates, do exist around the world, and they've been identified as the blue zones. There are 5 of them, and we're going to look very quickly at each one of them individually. This comes from a grant from the National Geographic Society, who funded a group of researchers to go out and first verify the ages of these individuals, and then go through their health history, and then finally look at their diet and their lifestyle factors that might be influencing their longevity and health. Subsequent to that, the lead researcher, Dan Buettner, wrote a book that came out a few years ago called The Blue Zones, that covers all these 5 different blue zones, but also what lessons that they learned from it. More recently, he came out with a book called The Blue Zone Solution, which primarily looked at what they ate. Today, I'm going to share with you a lot of the information that came from the Blue Zone Solution. The first blue zone that we're going to look at is a Greek island called Ikaria. Ikaria is actually 30 miles off the coast of Turkey. It's a very hilly island. It has a population of over 20,000, but what's interesting is they have approximately 6% of the population living to be over 100 and healthy. Do you know what we have in the United States? 0.5%. Okay. So they have people that are living a long and healthy life. So let's look at what they eat.
Icari variation of the Mediterranean diet is high in vegetables, beans, and olive oils, yet low in meat and sugar. Uniquely, it's lower in grains and fish, but high in potatoes.
So what do we learn finally from this blue zone? It's clear that people in this island die less by cardiovascular disease and cancer, but they have to die. So the way they are dying is the Icarian way of dying. They take time to die, and doing so they live longer. So it's a blue zone.
So let's look at some of the foods that they eat. This is a very popular dish in Ikaria. It's the Icarian stew that is made with black-eyed peas, very common here in the United States, leafy greens, fennel, lemon, and olive oil, of course. Now, when I show you all these photos, I know eventually some of you are going to get hungry, especially if you didn't eat breakfast. But all these recipes will be available because I did actually test all these out with my husband. And he liked this one. So Mary will have a website that you can go to. But here are the other major components of their diet. They, in addition to eating legumes from black-eyed peas, they eat a lot of chickpeas. They eat a lot of wild greens. They can go out and things like we see, like dandelion greens, and we just let it go. Those are the things that they're eating. Potatoes, oftentimes thought as not good, but actually a very good source of vitamins and minerals as long as they're not deep fried, right? That's actually the #1 vegetable eaten in the United States, potatoes as French fries. Okay? They also eat feta cheese and drink a lot of coffee, and they sweeten it with their own local honey. In addition to that, of course, they're Mediterranean, so they drink red wine as well. So legumes, they make up a huge portion of, as we'll see, all of the blue zones, but in Ikaria in their diet. So let's look at what's considered an appropriate blue zone intake. Everybody in the blue zone are eating legumes at least once a day, some twice a day or more. So when we look at SRJC, we see that 48 of you are doing okay. 80% of you could actually eat more legumes. Now, you can buy legumes in a can, you can buy legumes frozen, but you don't have to sit there for 3 hours and cook them. They all have the most fiber that you can possibly get. And so thinking of ways to sneaking them into foods, whether it's your spaghetti sauce or your Chinese stir fry, getting those legumes in there will really boost your intake. The next blue zone that we're going to look at is in Japan. It's Okinawa. Okinawa is actually a group of islands south of the main portion of Japan. It's about 1,000 miles south of Tokyo. The way to think about Okinawa, they say, is as a Hawaiian Japan, because it's very tropical, very warm, and you'll see from the foods, it resembles a lot in terms of Hawaii.
We are invited to stay for lunch, and Misako-san and Hana-san quickly display their culinary skills. On the menu are some traditional Okinawan dishes. Misako-san explains the reason they taste so good was that all the ingredients are fresh, even the pork, and her vegetable garden provides not only for herself, but for others as well.
So here are some of the dishes from Okinawa. One of the things that they consume regularly for breakfast is miso soup. Now, if you go to a typical Japanese restaurant and you get your bowl of miso soup, it's a thin broth with maybe a couple of cubes of tofu in it. That's not what they eat in Okinawa. Here they eat a much more substantial vegetable-filled miso soup. They have a purple sweet potato that I'll show you in the next slide that is very popular, which makes up a significant amount of their calories. And what you saw the woman cooking here was actually bitter melon, stir fry, which they call goya champuru. Now, the researchers put a lot of purpose into that and think that that's a major factor in their longevity, but I'm going to talk about otherwise. It is very bitter, and it's less bitter if it's fresh. As my husband found out last night, if you keep it for a long time and then you cook it, it's really bitter, okay? The other dish is stir fries with tofu as their legume source. They eat a lot of soybeans and soybean products. And they do eat meat. As they said in the video, they eat pork, but they eat small amounts of it. When they stir fry, they use just a small amount of pork, probably the amount that would be in one serving of our plate of pork loin. So here's a photograph of those different foods, and I just wanted to show you bitter melon. You should try it at some point. Soak it a little bit in water, but get it fresh if you're going to try it. Here are the purple sweet potatoes. Karen Furukawa really likes those purple sweet potatoes. And then we're getting there. Okay, they eat a lot of tofu, as I said, sweet potatoes, shiitake mushrooms, and their leafy green in Okinawa, as well as the rest of Japan, is seaweed, both dried as well as fresh. And interestingly, it's different from the mainland part of Japan, they do eat garlic and turmeric, which is much more considered a Southeast Asian type of, and then green tea. The vegetables are high in Okinawa, so let's see how Santa Rosa Junior College does in terms of vegetable intake. In the blue zones, it's recommended that you consume 2 or more servings of vegetables a day. And you can see that really 65% of you could do a little bit better, thinking about ways to get those vegetables in there. In terms of meat products, the blue zones eat a small amount of meat, not even every day. So the goal is at most 2 to 3 times a week. Oh, sorry. And you can see here that quite a few of you, about 30% of you, could do with a little bit less meat. Now, I'm not going to try to turn you all into vegans nor vegetarians, but I think we could all think about our meat consumption and cut it down a bit. And then another favorite of the blue zones is seafood. Seafood intake at least once a week. The American Heart Association recommends 2 to 3 times a week in terms of intake, and that's, sorry, I'm getting excited. There are many of you who could actually increase your fish intake. Now, it's not all good news in Okinawa. As most of you know, Okinawa also has an Air Force base, a U.S. Air Force base there. It also has a claim to fame of the world's largest A&W root beer. And this isn't on the Air Force base. This is actually in the main city in Okinawa. So the diet is changing.
Young people are flocking from the countrysides to the cities, where they're seduced by the American influence. On the streets of the capital, baseball caps and US military dog tags are the unofficial uniform. Shops do a roaring trade dishing out American culture and cuisine. Hot dogs, hamburgers and fries are cool. Modern life, with its medical advances and miracle cures, is meant to extend life, but in Okinawa, it's shortening it, a development with implications for people everywhere. Obesity rates are booming, and lung cancer is growing faster here than anywhere else in Japan. These young people will not live nearly as long as their grandparents. Average life expectancy is already starting to slide.
And what we've seen in Okinawa over the past 30 years or so is a population that's gone from having some of the leanest people in Japan to having the highest body mass index among the Japanese.
I can't help but think that that was the United States maybe 50 or 60 years ago, and that eventually they're going to get to a point that we're at now where they're going to see this rising rate of diabetes and obesity, and they're going to be looking for what we're looking for today, a way of eating that leads to a long life. Our next blue zone is in Central America. It's in Costa Rica. It's particular an area called the Nicoya Peninsula. Beautiful, again, a hilly, rocky region. Let's look at the foods that they eat there.
It is one of the factors scientists look at the most when investigating Costa Rica's centenarians.
¿Cómo no? Esta es una de las comidas base de nosotros, es el arroz y los frijoles. Y sí, efectivamente tiene muchos carbohidratos y el campesino, que es el que más lo consume, necesita hidratarse porque el trabajo es muy duro, muy pesado.
The traditional breakfast is simple: eggs, black beans, and rice. Tortillas are a staple for all meals in the Costa Rican diet. Traditional methods for making them involve the use of lime to soften corn husks. The lime contributes calcium that can strengthen bones that weaken in old age.
So let's look at their food. I think the first one is the tortillas. The tortillas, they said they're using lime to soften the corn. That isn't the lime that you use for your mojitos and your margaritas, right? It's actually calcium hydroxide. Now, what's fascinating about this, and this technique actually goes back 1200 BC, there is a B vitamin in corn called niacin. If you just eat corn, you can't absorb that niacin. But when it's mixed with this calcium hydroxide, the niacin is released and we're able to absorb it. So this method of preparing corn actually prevented a severe vitamin B deficiency in this population. But what's also interesting is in the United States, we use niacin as a drug to lower blood cholesterol levels. So these individuals are eating foods that really boost their intake of niacin and potentially lowering their risk of heart disease. They're eating a lot of fruits. They eat a lot of tropical fruits, and this is thought to contribute to the very low incidence of stomach cancer in the Nicoya Peninsula relative to the rest of Costa Rica. They eat squash, yams, black beans as their legume, and then eggs. So let's look at our fruit intake. The blue zones, once a day at least, maybe twice a day. That leaves 46% of you that could do more. So think about that fruit today and try to add that to your diet. Our next to last blue zone is in Italy, but actually not the mainland of Italy. We're looking at an island off of Italy called Sardinia that is equidistant from France, Italy, and the north coast of Africa. Sardinia has a large population of individuals that live to be 100, but also have a low incidence of heart disease and low incidence of dementia. This is one of their hallmark meals, minestrone soup. Minestrone soup that varies with the season. Probably many of you have had minestrone soup. It always has legumes in it. But what they do in Sardinia is they eat it for lunch as well as dinner, and they fill it with whatever vegetables are in season. So more squash, zucchini, etc. in the summer, more onions and leeks, etc. in the winter. So they're constantly getting their seasonal vegetables that way. Other things that they consume, they drink a lot of goat's milk and make cheese out of sheep's milk. They eat grain products. They eat whole grain products. They're eating a flatbread that is very dense, that can be carried with them when they're working in the hills. They eat barley. Now, the interesting thing about barley is it contains a soluble fiber that, as it goes through your body, never entering into your bloodstream, it has the capability of lowering your blood cholesterol. Okay? So by eating this whole grain and other things like these fava beans and chickpeas, They're possibly increasing their soluble fiber intake and lowering their blood cholesterol. And of course, it's Italy, so they drink red wine. So let's look at our whole grain intake at the JC. The blue zones, again, recommend it for at least once or twice a day. That gives 62 of you a goal to look forward to. Okay? Now the next slide is alcohol intake. I'm not going to give any recommendations here. For those of you who don't drink, you don't have to start drinking. The recommendation is that women drink 1 serving of alcohol a day and men drink a maximum of 2 alcoholic servings a day. And it doesn't work, as inevitably one student in my class will always ask, well, can I save it all till Saturday? Our final blue zone. Just when you were beginning to think, well, these blue zones only take place in exotic locations that are isolated and in these beautiful areas, we're going to look at Southern California. Loma Linda, California, the home of many Seventh-day Adventists, a religion that promotes health. And as part of their health goals, they espouse a vegetarian diet. These are some of the foods that are eaten in large amounts in the Seventh-day Adventist diet. One of the things about the diet is they recommend water as your main fluid intake. No coffee, no tea, no alcohol. They eat a lot of fats from good fats like avocado. They also eat nuts on a daily basis. Eat a lot of beans and oatmeal. Again, really good sources of soluble fiber that lower your blood cholesterol levels. And then whole wheat, and they use a lot of soy products in their diet. Now, one of the misconceptions about Seventh-day Adventists is that they're all vegetarians or they're all vegans. They aren't. There are many people practicing Seventh-day Adventists that actually do eat meat and do eat seafood. And so what this allows researchers to do is to actually look at the Seventh-day Adventist population and look at the effect of diet on things like heart disease and longevity. And the University of Loma Linda is involved in a study right now where they've divided 93,000 North American Seventh-day Adventists into 5 groups based on their diet. We have the vegans, who eat no animal products, lacto-ovo-vegetarians who eat cheese and egg, pesco-vegetarians who add fish to their diet occasionally, what they call semi-vegetarians who eat some meat or fish during the month but less than once a week, and then your non-vegetarians, or what we could say your meat eaters. Right? When they looked at these individuals, they looked at death records and looked at the longevity of each of these groups. And what they found was that 3 out of 5 of these groups had a much longer longevity and healthy lifestyle living. The semi-vegetarians and non-vegetarians, not quite so. What's really fascinating about the data, though, here is actually the group that lived the longest is actually the pesco vegetarians. So some things to take away from the Seventh-day Adventist is they're eating about a handful of nuts about 4 to 5 times a week. Now that's a handful, not a canful. Okay? Handful. They drink a lot of water, 6 to 8 cups of water. This is their major beverage. What's really interesting about water is that studies have shown that if you drink adequate amounts of water, you tend to be at a healthier body weight, especially if you drink your water just before you eat. The other fact I tell my students oftentimes is water is your most essential nutrient and the one you're probably deficient of right now. One of the signs of deficiency, I know you're all going to say thirst, but actually one of the signs of deficiency is your stomach actually rumbles a little bit and you feel a little tired. Now, what do you guys do when your stomach rumbles a little bit and you feel a little tired? Eat, exactly. So instead of eating, next time try to drink some water and see if that doesn't go away, and you've saved all those calories. Let's look at our water intake at the JC. The blue zones, again, 6 to 8 glasses of water at least. We can see that 63% of you could do better. Carry around that water bottle with you. Make Carla proud. In terms of nut intake, again, the Seventh-day Adventists eat a handful once a day, 4 to 5 times a week, but we'll give you once a day as well. 40% of you could start increasing your nut intake. So these are the blue zones. You can see their varied diets all the way across, and they're very interesting, and they are correlated with decreased chronic disease and longevity. Their major characteristics that they all have in common, you can see they all have a plant slant. They're all based on fruits and vegetables in high quantities. They eat whole grains. And in terms of animal products, the dairy and the meat, they eat it in small quantities. Their big protein source is legumes in all of the blue zones. And their major source of fat are the good fats in terms of avocado and olive oil. In addition to the plant slant, had to have the chocolate up there as well. In addition to the plant slant, they're eating a minimal amount of processed foods, and their major beverages are not soda, energy drinks, or Snapple. It's water, tea, coffee, and red wine. Now, this is fascinating, and it's a nice read, and you get very interested in traveling around the world. But these are all what we call in science observational studies. They've just seen the association between what these people eat and their health and their longevity. What's more important is to look at intervention studies, where we've actually given people this type of diet and then looked at what are the health consequences. And we've actually done that in the United States. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, physicians, the medical community, the nutrition community realized that when people had high blood pressure, they had always been recommending a low sodium diet. Sodium is found in salt. So they'd counsel people on decreasing sodium. Majority of people, their blood pressure never went down. But still, that was kind of our mantra, low sodium diet. The NIH, in their wisdom, decided that maybe we shouldn't just be looking at one nutrient, because no one's eating just one nutrient. Instead, let's look at a diet. And so they created what's known as the DASH eating plan that is based on whole foods, fruits and vegetables, grains, etc., and tested the entire diet on the effect of lowering blood pressure and on health statistics. The DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension. And if you remember, hypertension is one of the risk factors for type 2 diabetes. This is the DASH plan. Lots of fruits and vegetables. And the numbers have to do with servings, but I want you to just imagine the quantities. So the base is fruits and vegetables, moves up to whole grains, recommends low-fat dairy in small quantities, 0 to 2 servings of lean meat, fish, or poultry, a lot of legumes, nuts, and seeds, and those healthy oils as well. Sound familiar? Let's look at some data. This is data that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, looking at people who were switched from the standard American diet to 2 different treatment groups. So what you see here is blood pressure. Oops, sorry. What you see here is blood pressure. This is your systolic blood pressure, the higher number. This is your diastolic, the lower number in your blood pressure. This is the black dots are people that followed the standard American diet for 8 weeks. And you can see their blood pressure maybe went down a bit, but didn't really change. Then they had individuals just take the standard American diet and add fruits and vegetables. When they did that, they found that, yes, their blood pressure went down, but the groups that ate the DASH diet had the most significant drop in blood pressure. And they went from 130, which is considered pre-hypertension, to getting closer to your healthy blood pressure of 80 over 120. Same thing with here, they actually went down to 80. So we have proof, or at least data, to show that the DASH diet is effective in lowering blood pressure. Another group actually looked at the effect of the DASH diet on your blood cholesterol levels. Now, we had our cholesterol levels measured a couple weeks ago, so most of you hopefully got yours done and know what your numbers are. But they tested in this group the DASH diet versus, again, the diet with fruits and vegetables increased. And this is baseline here, and this is looking at the changes in the different types of cholesterol as well as triglycerides. What we see here is in the DASH group, from baseline, they dropped their total cholesterol, and they were able to drop their LDL cholesterol, which is considered the bad cholesterol. When they added fruits and vegetables, we didn't see any change in their blood cholesterol levels. So more data indicating a beneficial effect of the DASH diet. In addition, there have been other studies that have shown that during this treatment period, these individuals also lost weight. So the benefits of the DASH diet, which the US News and World Report has consistently rated the #1 diet in America, and we're thinking of diet now in the new sense of what we're going to eat for the rest of our life, because it can lower blood pressure, hypertension, and body weight. Now, if you look at these side by side, and it's not just because I created the slide, but really, the DASH diet looks very similar to the blue zones. So it's not unreasonable to think that the potential effect of the blue zone diets comes through the same type of characteristics that we get if we eat the DASH diet. Now, I would be amiss to just stick with food, because life is more than just what we eat, and it does include lifestyle factors. As Karen Stanley went over, physical activity is key as well, and then there are some other habits that we have that can influence your health and longevity. So let's look at physical activity in the blue zones.
Both are quick to explain that they believe the reason for their longevity is the way they live, starting with what they eat, and that's a lot of vegetables, such as the leafy green handama, and in particular, goya, or bitter gourd, which form a great percentage of their diet, and it's all grown by themselves in their own backyard.
Every garden in Ogimi village is filled with fruit trees and vegetables, and dotted with open plots adjacent to the houses, where locals grow and tend their crops in this nutrient-rich soil, providing them with not only a valuable food source, but a way to stay fit and healthy. For 90-year-old Hana-san, spending time outside digging, weeding, planting and harvesting is just an everyday part of life, and a good part of the reason that 80% of the elderly here live independently.
So what we see in the blue zones is they have a lifestyle that includes a lot of physical activity. Unfortunately, most of us in here don't have that luxury of getting to farm all day. So we need to think about including physical activity in our lifestyle. Now, last year, the presidents gave you an example of how to do it. 4 to 6 times a week minimum in terms of physical activity. There are 51% of you that could actually think about including more physical activity in your daily life. Now, there are also some habits and lifestyle factors that we learned from the blue zones, and one of them is a concept that came from the Okinawa blue zone, but also was found in some of the other blue zones as well. And that's the idea of mindful eating, of thinking about what you're eating and how your body feels. The idea in Okinawa is to give a saying before you eat that reminds you to eat only until you're 80% full. Now, to know you're 80% full, you have to first realize that you're filling up. And so you have to think about what you're eating and try to think, I could eat that last piece, but I really don't need to. To pronounce this saying properly, I've enlisted the help of a true, I shouldn't say true Japanese, but
Hara Hachibu, or Hara Hachibunme.
Okay. Hiroshi did it for me. He has a much better accent than my American Japanese. So let's say it all together. I want you to all say this before you eat. Hara Hachibu. Or you could say Hara Hachibun mi. Yes. So think about that as you go through today and eat your lunch and dinner. Another factor in the blue zones is getting adequate amounts of sleep. The recommended amount of sleep that people should get is 7 to 9 minutes. I'm sorry. It's Mary's fault. She said you have 5 minutes, so 7 to 9 hours a night. Let's see how the JC is doing. There are 28% of you that are getting less than 6 hours of sleep a night. Now, an article in the Journal of Obesity found that people that get less than 6 hours of sleep a night are much more likely to have problems with obesity. And another major contribution to longevity is social connectivity, what we're doing today, being with your buds, your peers, sharing your life, and here we see an effect in the blue zones.
Meet Evangelia Carnava. Longevity runs in her family almost as fast as she zips through town. At 93, she lives alone, and unlike most villagers here, has mastered technology. Her son, a very young 62, relates one of her main secrets.
She never eat the meat red.
And adds,
they relax and don't think nothing. Don't think nothing.
Like many older people in Ikaria, she spends much of her year in Athens with family. But she can't wait to get back here to get her social fix in the town square. One of the most effective longevity supplements is social connectivity. We know that for people over 65, their chances of dying at any age nearly triples if they're alone, compared to those like Evangelia, who have strong circles of friends.
So let's keep our friends close as we go through it. Now, before I get into what I'm going to have you do to achieve your long life, I wanted to give you a glimpse of what's in the future in terms of nutrition. And a up-and-coming area is what's called nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics, or nutritional genomics, is an area in nutrition where they're looking at how your DNA may influence your dietary needs. So just like when we watch TV and the Ancestry.com, you could find out whether you're from Africa or Italy, etc. Eventually, the idea is that you may be able to get your DNA tested to help identify some issues that may make changing your diet much more realistic, or more relevant, I should say. So right now, we recommend the same diet for everybody to try to reduce your risk of diabetes. But what if we could do a genetic test that showed that person A is going to benefit a lot more from eating this diet? Then we could give individual diet recommendations with this and potentially reduce chronic disease in the United States more effectively. But again, that's in the future. How soon in the future, experts disagree, but it's coming up. But right now, we still need to think the plant slant. So I'm going to leave you with making a commitment to one of the three following areas. One of the things we see in behavioral economics is that small changes are critical. And so just doing one of these today, every day for the next 2 weeks can help change your lifestyle. The first one is plant slant. The second we'll look at is hara hachibu, and then water. In terms of a plant slant, add some more vegetables to your diet, add some legumes. Now you could go to the exotic, but what I want you to realize is plants are plants. Doesn't matter if they came from Okinawa and are purple, or they came from Sonoma County and are orange. They have health benefits in them. So just think, you don't need to eat that sour bitter melon that was so horrible last night, Carl, sorry. But eating any fruits and vegetables in larger quantities and adding some legumes to your diet. Be sure to think about Hiroshi before you eat and the saying.
Hara hachibu or hara hachibunme.
Just think, I really feel that if we were all more mindful when we're eating, we wouldn't even have to worry about diet because you wouldn't eat as much till you're going to explode. I never ate all those ice cream sundaes to the end, okay? In terms of water, again, when you're feeling tired, you feel a little grumbling in your stomach, think about water, especially if you're drinking alcohol. Make sure you're drinking, for every glass of alcohol you drink, make sure you're covering that with some water. Now, willpower is exhaustible, and that's one of the other factors that comes out of behavioral economics, meaning that your ability to do it on your own has a limited lifespan. So what we need to do is create an environment that supports our health goals, our ideas of wellness. And that's where I'm going to enlist all of you in here. I want each of you to not only take responsibility for making one change in your life, but also think of ways that we can change our environment in terms of the JC. So one of them, in terms of the plant slant. Let's think about when we order those meals or those lunches for all of our meetings, and we get the typical turkey sandwich, pasta, and cookie. Why don't we start ordering, as my nutrition colleagues have done for their advisory group, a Greek salad with a roasted chicken breast on top? Let's ask for it. We just get it, the turkey, the roast beef, the ham, but we can ask for something different. My APAS group, for our meetings, we've asked for stir-fried vegetables. And they've been delicious with salmon. Much better than these turkey sandwiches. I hate turkey, sorry. We can also really ask food service to focus more on vegetarian foods so that we can become more like Davis's Coffee House, where they have a lot of vegetarian options as well as meat options as well, but giving the whole spectrum of different types of foods. In terms of water, as we move forward with our Measure H funding, one of the things that we should all try to think about is making sure that these new buildings, these new areas that we move into, have these water filling stations, which we right now have one of in Santa Rosa and one in Petaluma. I think we should have them throughout the campus. And as you work on your committees, you start thinking about it. So, in conclusion, again, you're all going to make one commitment to plant slant, hara hachibu, or water here. And to help you with that, my colleagues, my social connectivity group, is going to get up and they're going to hand you out a present. Each one of you is going to get a wristlet that has on it plant slant, harahachibu, and water that hopefully you'll wear throughout your life. And it'll remind you to consume water, consume more plants, and to harahachibu. So, in conclusion, I'm just going to leave you with the saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Try a new vegetable. Okay. Thank you. Make sure you get your wristband. If you don't want it, you can leave it.
Oh, before you go, we'd like to present Tammy with her plaque. So please, just a couple of minutes yet, and we also want to make sure you all get your wristbands. So, Dan Mutton, please.
So I'm going to give Tammy her plaque that says Santa Rosa Junior College, in recognition of teaching excellence. Brook Tauzer Faculty Lecture, Spring 2017. Tammy Sakanashi, Health Sciences Department, Professional Development Activities.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. I feel so fortunate to be able to do something for 20 years that I truly love. The grading, not so much now, but I think that was Karen's on me. But I love this job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I do want to really give a shout out and much appreciation to Dreamer and Heidi Brockman for doing a stellar job of interpreting again. That is exhausting just to watch them. All right, so please go enjoy the rest of the day. It's not raining. I'm so excited. Have a good day.